What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is, because people get to know you, they get to see you.
Making those efficiencies to maximise service profits as well as just product profits.
When you lose the enthusiasm, that's the point to move on.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews, and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so, into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer, or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. In this captivating episode of ScaleUp Radio, you're going to want to join me as I talk with Jeni Smith, who is the founder of NetKno, and she's also a networking strategist. And we delve into the world of networking and business growth with a spotlight on NetKno, which is a networking consultancy business that Jeni is hoping will revolutionise how people network in a smarter and more strategic way. And Jeni's the mastermind behind NetKno, and she shares her inspirational journey so far of developing a cutting-edge SaaS platform which is designed to really help people to network strategically. So listing networking events, offering the users to power and filter and create personalised dashboards around the needs that they have in terms of using and strategically working with networking groups. So you're going to want to tune in for some of those valuable insights on strategic networking, on how diversity plays a real role, and the importance of thinking about networking as knowledge exchange and not just around sales, as we discuss the evolution of networking events during lockdown and the profound impact of building a really diverse network. So tune in and listen to the rest of Jeni's story. You're going to get a lot out of this episode. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted to be joined by Jeni Smith today, who is the founder and is networking strategist of NetKno. So Jeni, welcome to ScaleUp Radio. So NetKno, there's a clue there in how I introduced you, but what's NetKno all about?
Well, NetKno, it actually started life as networking know-who, which is a bit of a mouthful, I've realised. So after a year, and I got a professional agency to come and do the branding and stuff, then they were like, yeah, it's too long. We'll call it NetKno. But it's all about networking. So helping people network, essentially, especially helping them network smarter. That's kind of my little tagline. Okay. So there's loads of different things involved in that.
So take us through that, because networking, there's lots of opportunities for us to network as business owners. In fact, we could probably spend all of our working week networking if we really wanted to. So
I did that for a year, actually.
yeah. So what's different about what you're doing? You're obviously not it sounds like you're not providing the networking so much yourself, but you're providing the strategic advice as to how to make use of networking in our businesses. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's how it kind of started out, actually. I did network full time for a year in Liverpool. So I used to go to 5-6 events every day on behalf of a lot of different people. So I do a kind of corporate analysis of a business, get to understand them, their product services, and then I'd go out to all the events. So I was up at like 6 a.m, networking, late at night, you know, everything in the middle. So you can do it full time. And that's kind of where it came from. And then that experience then led me into launching my own network. So I used to host events. And then my life kind of moved over to the north. That was over in Cumbria. I moved over to the northeast like 10 years ago, and then was the managing director of a network that already existed over here called Muscle Club. So again, hosting events, running networks, that was always a big part of it. I then took a bit of a sidestep into tech and supported tech companies. And while I was there, people always asked me questions about networking still, because it was always my passion and that was my background. And one day I ended up drawing this like doodle of these like circles, and it is how my brain envisioned the world of networking events. And it's what I use to help people select which events they should go to. And I explained it to some colleagues, and my CEO at the time, he ground in tech, but he'd done his PhD, and he said, "Oh, that's a hypothesis." And I was like, "What the heck is a hypothesis?" So I went and Googled that, and then ended up taking it to Durham University, and they did some academic research into this doodle, which looks a lot nicer now. But that essentially is what really gave me the kick up the behind to help businesses network smarter. So this visual aid is now one of the tools that I use to help people select which networking events they should attend in a strategic manner. Usually, historically, people went to the networking events with the best buffets or the free booze, but that's not always the best place to get that return on investment, depending on what your objectives are. So that's kind of where NetKno was born, really, and that was just over 3 years ago now. Launched a business with the idea of teaching the networking skills. So they're helping people build their confidence, learning how to get in and out of conversations, all the practical stuff, but also teaching them and working as a consultant to create these networking strategies for them, which is where I'm really passionate. I'm like helping people really embed networking into their overall marketing strategy, so that when they're sending their people out to these events, they need to be doing it in a cost-effective manner. So often less is more. You don't have to go to all the events, 5 a day. It's crazy. I didn't want to speak to anyone after a year of that. But
how did you manage to remain so slim as well? I mean, you must have...
Well, back in the day, I was young, free, fancy free. I didn't pay for wine or food for like a year. It was great. But the more you network, though, the more events you get invited to. As your social capital increases, the more valuable you become, because the more resources you have access to. So the more people then want to be tapping into that. So then you get invited to more networking events and more opportunities and more doors open. So it was a really interesting thing. But yeah, so that's essentially, that's really where it came from, this desire to use my experience to help more people get more from networking.
Okay. And how does the business model work for you? How do you make money?
So there's 3 elements to the business. There's the teaching networking skills, which is obviously training, and within that you've got live training. You've got pre-recorded content, which is like you can pay, off the shelf. There's an online course that you can just log into anytime. Or a lot of organizations want their own pre-recorded content that's branded for them, which is really nice. So there's the training side of things. There's the networking consultancy, which is done with businesses directly, but also through support agencies. So I found that works really well. That helped me when I launched, because I launched in lockdown. And that wasn't on purpose. I was on maternity leave when I decided to quit my job and start the business. And the week my husband took over parental leave was the week that everything shut. So my business plan went out the window. I was like, right. Everyone in the world was obviously like, what is going on? The last thing anyone was going to be doing is spending money on networking training, because there was no events. There was nothing going on. Everyone was putting fires out. Yeah. So I used my experience from working in the support ecosystem and created business support packages that meant that I could sell directly into the support agencies, who then, something that I got paid, but the businesses I was helping got access to support for free. So I was able to help people in lockdown to utilize their networks and learn how to network online and things like that, like online events and stuff. So that worked really well. The second side is that consultancy side. So going in, working directly with the businesses, the creation of the networking strategies. Sometimes that involves coaching and things more long term. But those two elements of the business obviously involve me and involve my time. So they're not necessarily that scalable. So the third part of the business is the SaaS platform that I've built. So again, utilizing my experience working in tech, I wanted to build a part of the business that could exist without me, that wasn't reliant on my time, and that was scalable. And obviously technology is a fantastic way to do that. So SaaS, which is software as a service, was a great option. And I think it's a fantastic business model. I love the idea of building something once and selling it multiple times, even when I'm not engaged. And it takes me out of the business, which means that the business is potentially something that could be scaled and sold in the future. So how that works is that it's a website, a platform that lists all the networking events that are happening. Currently, it covers the Northeastern Tees Valley, and it's soon going to be covering Cumbria as well. That's where my networks are, so it makes sense to start there. And then the idea is that the website, it lists all the networking events that are available. This morning I did a newsletter, and there was 187 events on there. So there's loads of opportunities, which is wonderful. And it's a free listing. Anyone can go and look at what's coming up in the next 2 weeks. Anything past 2 weeks, you can sign up to a free 30-day trial, and then it's a subscription model. And when you sign up as a subscriber to the platform, not only do you unlock all the events past 2 weeks, you also unlock a lot of filter functionality. So you can search for events based on location, on topic and theme, which is really useful for people that are looking for networks. Again, strategically looking for events that are happening outside of their peripheral. They may be looking at different things, or they've got a new target market. So it allows them to do that. It allows them to create their own dashboard, which they can follow the networks that they like, or they're part of, or they're members of. And they can follow the topics that they care about. And then the dashboard shows them just those events. They don't have to filter through 200. They've just got right in front of them the ones that they care about based on the topics they're interested in. And it just, again, helping making networking events more accessible and more strategic as well. So that side of the business, that's a bit more not as Jeni focused, which is good.
Not as Jeni focused. All right, very good. And of course, if you've developed your training courses on video as well, then part of that presumably doesn't require you so much. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm always looking for ways in which, so there's some additional things on the platform, there's some digital downloads that are tools that can help you network, like checklists and things like that. Again, create it once and then it's there. It can be sold repeated amounts. So now I don't have to get involved in that interaction. Right. So what are some of the things that we need to think about as business owners from a networking perspective? How do we need to be thinking about it within our businesses? Because I know there's a lot of myths, but also a lot of maybe just things that we believe is true about networking that may not be. And one of those might be that networking is only for very small businesses, for example, or that as linked to that, as we scale, then networking isn't going to be enough to help us to scale. And of course, we've got people that you sort of mentioned before, we could go to all sorts of networking events and just take part and just enjoy it. But actually, are we really making it work for us? And think about it strategically, as you said. So what are some of the things we need to be thinking about?
Well, the first thing for me is always going to be strategy. So thinking about what it is you want in return for networking. With networking, it's not the same as social media. If you invest 10 grand in social media activity, you can see the numbers and the data in real time, and you can see what you're getting for that investment. Networking doesn't work the same. Unfortunately, it's a lot more difficult to quantify, word of mouth marketing and how people see you and perspective and all those things. But having some set objectives, I think, are going to change depending on what stage you are in your scale up journey, in your business growth journey. And that could be whether it's, if you are starting out, it's going to be accessing information, knowledge, suppliers. One of the biggest value adds that networking provides. It's nothing to do with sales, although it's a fantastic business development tool. The core of networking is this access to knowledge and information. And that knowledge and information is what allows us to make more strategic decisions. It allows us to innovate. A big area of interest for me, so I'm currently doing my PhD at Durham University, researching networking events and specifically diverse networks. And there's already a lot of research that's shown that business owners, especially like the decision makers, businesses who have diverse networks build higher value firms. Their businesses are more financially viable, they're more sustainable, they're more innovative. And when I say diversity, I mean networking with people outside of your area of expertise. Yep. So one of the big mistakes that we naturally are drawn to people who think the same way that we do. They speak the same language, and the techies, they speak their own language, so they tend to network together. The business people network together because they speak about, SMEs and ROIs, and, the academics, they network together. And even within academia, you've got the departments of people, in my world, it's like network theory, social science, but then you've got the hard sciences, the biologists, the chemists, and then even with that, we create these little tribes for ourselves because they make us feel safe. But the problem is that if we only speak to people that know the things that we know, we're not learning anything new. And the CEOs, the business owners who go out and proactively network and engage and connect with people from different industries, sectors, cultures, countries, everything, the more diverse your network is, the more you are going to learn, which is going to help you be a better individual. It's going to help you be better at running a business. You're going to connect with other leaders who create these peer-to-peer knowledge transfer, these even mentor relationships that networks provide. It's going to be able to allow you to tap into that. But you're also going to find out, you have potentially created a product or a service that fixes a problem in a completely different industry that you don't know exists, but they use different language to you. So they would never find you and you would never find them. So unless you go out and start talking to people, and then that's where you spot opportunities. That's where you can innovate and, create and diversify the business and spot these opportunities through this diverse network creation. And that is especially the further in, the bigger, more successful your business becomes, the more valuable and important that becomes for the leaders of the business. Absolutely.
I love that as a different way of looking at the value of networking, and not being just about the sales and did I get a referral from going to that particular meeting, but actually did I get value in some other way that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And I'm with you entirely on that idea of getting diverse viewpoints. Yeah. And I've had someone talk to me about it before in a way. It's a little bit like if you just mix with people in your industry and you just get consultants in your industry that are expert in your industry and things like that, then that's like in your house looking out of your south-facing window and going, how do I improve the view out of that window? I'll make sure the window's clean first of all. Maybe I chop down a tree or two at the end of the garden so that I can see that little bit clearer. And then maybe I get a telescope as well so I can really see in the future. But what you don't realize is that from the east and the west and the north windows, there's other things coming at you that you've had no view of at all. And it's better to, even if the view is partially obscured out of some of those windows, you're not quite as laser clear out of it. You need that perspective to enable you to really get everything in around.
Absolutely. I love that analogy of it. Yeah, that's totally what it is. And I think people forget that that's the purpose of diversity. It's for equal opportunities for people. Absolutely. But the value that it adds, it's not a tick in the box exercise. It's actually adding value because you're getting those different perspectives and those different insights. And that can be an absolute game changer for businesses. So yeah, totally. Networking that provides that. It's that access to knowledge and information, yeah, but it's also a fantastic research tool. So if you've got an idea for a new product or service, or you're wanting to get feedback, if you're into lean methodologies or whatever it is, and you want to get that feedback from your potential target market, going out and networking. And when you meet someone that's your dream client, I always say, don't sell at them, because it's like proposing to someone on the first date. You've just met them, they're like, whoa, let us warm up to you. Let us get to know you a little bit. You want to say to them, oh, like, you are my dream customer. Tell me everything. What is bothering you? What's going on with you? What do you think of this idea? Would you like this? Would this help you? If not, what would help you? What do you think about this price point? And literally use it as this opportunity to research and make sure that what you're doing and what you think about your target market is correct. It validates ideas. It helps create this amazing relationship with your potential customers, where they feel like they've contributed to your business and they're part of it, and they become customers for life. Like, you could sell at one person at an event, absolutely, but doing it that way, it's just going to provide you with so much more. So using, again, access to knowledge and information by having conversations with people, it can just be a game changer.
So what are some of the common mistakes you see in networking?
Ooh, people put a lot of pressure on themselves to sell. And people who are natural networkers think that they're not. So I see that as a mistake that happens a lot. People who naturally, they want to network because they like people and they want to add value to them. But for some reason, they feel like that's wrong and they should be selling. They should be more aggressive, when actually that's not the case at all. Plus, a lot of introverts, they deem themselves that they don't belong at networking events. And again, some of the best networkers I know are introverted. Introverts, it's just where you get your energy from. It's not that you can't talk to people. It's just that you think before you speak. Whereas extroverts like me start talking, I've got no idea what I'm talking about until I get to the end of the sentence. So I always say, if an introvert starts talking, you should shut up and listen, because they've thought about it. Whereas with me, you can go, oh, it's a lot of noise. So yeah, I think people doubt themselves way too much. That's often a big mistake. And then investing in the wrong events and then deeming that working being just like pointless. That's often. People often as well, another thing I see quite a lot is that there's certain types of networking that people don't actually go, oh, I'm networking, because they're not walking into a room in a hotel or a bar with a coffee station and just mingling. So they don't realize that they're actually networking. So things like volunteer work, oh, that's such an amazing way of networking, especially if you're volunteering at like board level in a charity or an organization, and especially if that organization aligns with your company's values, target market, that kind of thing. Networking at that level is fantastic, especially again for business leaders, because the people that you are connecting with who are also volunteering their time are usually the decision makers of other organizations who have got a passion and an interest in that specific charity. And people who do voluntary work are often at a stage in their career that they have autonomy of time. So again, they're often the decision makers and a lot more influential people. So that's a great way of networking. Or even just things like going for a coffee with people and having those one-to-ones. We live in a world of digital social media, which is wonderful. Don't get me wrong, absolutely fantastic, but it needs to be underlined with that one-to-one human connection. So I think even just investing in a couple of coffees with a couple of people a week is a great way to network. So don't feel like you have to attend 5 events every week and get 20 business cards per event. And, that's not the game that you're playing. The game that you're playing is actual human connection. So spending time with humans, that's where the real magic is.
Great. And what was your original hypothesis with your 3 circles then?
It's still what I use now. So it's 8 circles. So it breaks the world of networking events into 8 different zones, and each zone's got its own characteristics. The size of the circle represents the volume of delegates you tend to find at those events. And as those circles decrease, the volume of people decreases. But the level of, I don't want to say the value of deals that are done there, but often it is the value tends to increase as you move in the circles, and each circle's got its own characteristics. And on my website, there's a free download for a white paper, which I've written about it, which has got that model in there. It explains all the zones. And once you understand the characteristics, and it's often looking at the host of the event. So people often just look at the event itself on like a micro level, but actually if you look at who's hosting the event, for example, networks that are free to join and there's no commitment and there's no cost, wonderful. And the events that they host are often free as well. They tend to attract a large volume of people, but because they're free, it tends to be more your startup businesses, your one-man bands, your sole traders, which if that's your target market, perfect. Look for the free events that are free to join. There's no commitment. However, if you're at a different place in your business journey or your target market because of your price point means that startups just aren't the right demographic for you, then you want to be looking at networking events hosted by networks that come with a membership fee. And the same if you put on a cost to join, it's going to change the demographic. Even if it's just like, £500 a year. Startup businesses have got a lot of other expenses to be thinking about. Plus, they don't know if they're going to be around in another year. So the businesses that are attending the events that come with a cost and a commitment, they tend to have been around a little bit longer. They're reinvesting in themselves and their networking activities. They can afford it. And it's an indication that you're going to get slightly more established and larger businesses. So looking at, and if there's a criteria to join as well, some networks, you can only be part of a certain sector or you have to be of a certain size to join. Again, those kind of things are going to be an indicator on who's going to be in attendance as well.
Very good, very good. And obviously through lockdown saw a lot of change. Everything went online and we couldn't do the face-to-face meetings. What are you seeing as the current trends in networking?
The hosts of networking events are having to work a lot harder than they did pre-lockdown. It's a lot more effort for people to leave the house and put shoes on. In lockdown, we all got cozy in our little dens and we realized how much time and effort it took to travel places and to, it's big chunks of the day that we never thought of, I don't think, pre-lockdown, because it was just what we did. But then lockdown really highlighted that. So I think dropout rates are a lot higher and event hosts are having to work a lot harder or just be more innovative and really show that value of what, it's worth coming along, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that's quite a good thing. I think lockdown, obviously, the digital adoption that occurred during lockdown, we're all used to the technology now. We've all heard of and been on Zoom and Teams and what have you. So online networking obviously came into its own during that time. It's still there. It's not going anywhere. It's fantastically time and cost efficient. It's great for the environment. We haven't got travel expenses and costs of like parking and all that jazz. Yep. And it also allows us to network and start building relationships with people anywhere in the world. So for people who are looking to network, for example, if you want to launch a product in a new city, rather than having to have someone on the ground there, you can start building relationships with people in that city by attending online events hosted by networks who are based in that city. So again, really time and cost efficient, and it's just allowing for that barrier of geography to be lowered a bit. Again, like I said before, though, I would always underpin that if you can with in-person, face-to-face stuff.
Very good. All right. So what sort of stage have you got the business to? You've been doing this for three years now. Can you give us an idea of what kind of stage you're at with the business?
Yeah. So the first 9 months of the business for me was just like, lockdown, what's going on? No one knew what was going on. And I was just kind of fumbling through. A lot of education. I taught myself how to record my own content so that I can edit and then create those online courses. So I had some products to sell. So from the beginning, I was looking to productize and different options to do that. That was the first 9 months. I then started to build the SaaS platform, became a limited company and reinvested in the brand. So got a proper brand rather than one that I'd made on Canva. So year 2, was very much building the platform and getting that launched. That first version of what it was then and what it is now, very different. But that was part of my feedback loop. You know, I very much built that minimal viable product, took that to market, got feedback, what I thought people wanted, they didn't, and what I didn't realize they did want, they do. So phase 2 of development started in year 2. And that recently launched. So that launched just at the beginning of this year, actually. So we're just finally getting little tweaks of that now. But it's in a place now where I'm like confident that it's what I want it to be. It's what people want. We've got subscribers, we've got people signing up, people paying money, which is lovely, and plans to expand geographically, which is wonderful. And then I'm at a stage in the business now where it's like, right, I've laid the foundation, I've built the brand, I've got wonderful clients that I get to work with. So the kind of training work that I do, the consultancy stuff, that's running, that's going, that's ticking over. Obviously starting my PhD, which I started last October, that takes a lot of time. Last year, I was at a stage where I was like, right, do I take on staff now? I'm ready to take on staff, grow the business, and starting the PhD kind of put a little pin in that for me. So I currently outsource to amazing freelancers and people who know what they're doing. So I very much delegate. I delegate outward. It didn't feel fair to take on staff when I would then go, all right, bye, because I'm going to do my PhD. It's quite a selfish thing to do. So this year, now I've got this first year under my belt with the PhD. And now I'm going to be, as of Christmas, free to go off and do my research, which frees me up a lot of time. It's been a lot of lectures and things up until now. So now I'm back at that position again where it's like, right, okay, ready to take on staff. The SaaS platform's where I want it to be. It's ready to grow. So it's bringing that, everything that's been outsourced, potentially bringing that in-house. I have talked about investment. It was always something that I was not against, but didn't want someone else telling me what to do, if that makes sense. You know, I think once you take on that investment, you've got, you know, people saying, oh, well, when's this going to do? When this going? I run my own business because I want to run my own business and be able to do what I feel is the right thing for it. However, as now everything, it feels like all my ducks are getting in a row, and potentially there's a lot of opportunity to scale it quickly, but that means expertise, bringing that in-house, absolutely, like marketing and SaaS, it is its own beast. So having some expertise in that. So I think over the next year, it's going to be really exciting now. I feel like I've done the groundwork and I'm ready to take that leap into like stepping out and going, right, giving the reins over to more people internally, bringing it in, scaling it over the next few years with the goal of, for me, I would love to, by the time I finish the PhD, which would be 3 or 4 years, have the SaaS platform in a position where it's potentially ready to sell. And then that side of the business can be passed on to be run by someone else. So I'm free to travel the world, write books, and do TED Talks as Dr. Jeni Smith. That's the plan.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows, Kevin? But yeah. So that's fun, yeah.
Brilliant. I like the you what's the there's Dr. Ivan Meisner set up BNI, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I think what was his role? It was something like chief visionary officer or something, something like that. But yes, he got to the point where actually doesn't really have to do any of the day-to-day, but he can come and stand at the front of a big conference and talk to people and all of those.
I love doing that. I enjoy that. I love just going out and talking to people. And academia is not a world that I thought I wanted to do the PhD. I wanted the knowledge. I wanted to take it and I wanted to contribute to it as well. But actually, it's drawing me in. I can feel it. It's a wonderful world that I'm a lot more drawn to than I thought I would be. So ideally, I'd love to coexist in both, industry and academia at some point. So, but we'll see.
Okay. So, what are some of the challenges as you scale? Then, do you think? Because presumably, you've talked about there's 187 network types that you've got within the Northeast that you put in your newsletter, and you've got within the system there. You know, as you scale, presumably you've got to find all of the networking organisations in each different area of your scaling geographically.
Yeah. So, well, the 184 I mentioned before, that's the 184 events that are currently coming up in the Northeast and Tees Valley.
Okay.
Host-wise, there's over 300 hosts that we've got listed on there now. Not all of them, obviously, have got events in the diary at the moment. So we manage that. So I've got someone that I outsource that to. They've got a list of all the events we monitor. So anytime new events are released, they get updated. So it's not additional admin burden for the hosts of the events. It's free advertising for them. There's potential for the platform to provide additional revenue streams through things like the data that it generates, but also as a ticket system. Ticket system wasn't something I ever wanted it to be. Eventbrite exists. It does that. It does it very, very well. This was more about just having a focal point for the network and just for networking opportunities. As we expand, this is why we're doing it naturally. So obviously we've got Northeast, and then we've got Tees Valley, and then going Cumbria next. Following Cumbria, we'll go down. I spent 5 years as networking in Liverpool. So then again, spreading it out geographically where the people will have relationships and where they'll potentially want to cross-pollinate as well. So doing it rather than just going out to the whole world all in one go, which it's a natural feeling to want to, but actually doing it slowly and organically and allowing it to happen like naturally, I think it's definitely the better way for this growth plan. In regards to what that looks like, obviously managing it in-house, it's not as big of a job as you would think. And as the geographic coverage increases, ideally, I would love to have someone on the ground in the different regions. So there's opportunity. I don't know what that would look like. There's franchise potentially. There's lots of different revenues to do that. For me, it's making sure, I think the biggest issue, not the biggest issue, but in my mind, one of the biggest concerns is finding the right people, especially because it's networking and it has to be about the people and the relationships. And, if it's like anyone, your business is like your baby and you're entrusting it to other people to go off and represent your business, and it's a big thing. So finding the right people, I think that's probably going to be my biggest thing. Everything else.
Good. So what made you decide to set up NetKno in the first place? It was
when I was on maternity leave. Having had that research done into the ecosystem I created, that was definitely a spur for me to be like, right, this can actually help people. It's one of those moments where, when you realize that not everyone sees the world the way that you do, and you're like, I thought everyone just realized this, and I was like, I guess not. So I can actually help people by explaining it, by passing that on. And then after having my daughter, after becoming a parent, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Priorities change. For me, if I was investing my time in work, it had to be something that I truly loved. And networking has always been my absolute passion. I'm a bit obsessed with it. I'm a bit obsessed with connecting people and just helping people connect those dots for themselves or for others. And it's really seeing how, you introduce this person to that person, and then they go off and do something, and you're like, I was part of that, like being the catalyst for that. And if I can help other people be the catalysts for other people, it's just this kind of massive, paying it forwards world, and it genuinely changes people's lives. So I've always had this passion for it. And then I knew that I couldn't go back to running events, and I couldn't go back to networking full time. So that's where this business model came from, really. Began with the training and the desire to want to help others network. And then all the other products and services have just kind of come off the back of that.
Yeah. So you've outlined already some of the journey and the key milestones in the first nine months. You've outlined how you spent those and moving on then to developing the platform and version 2 and things. What about what have you learned along the way? What are some of the things you might have done differently given a bit of hindsight?
It's a big question, Kevin.
Mm.
What have I learned? I learned loads. I've probably learned more about myself during this journey, I guess, than anything else. I'm a big believer in your business is only as good as you. And if you don't know what you're doing or what you want, you're never going to get it. So for me, this business has been it's always had a big question mark over it from the start of like, right, what do you want to get from this? Do you want to start a business that you can run forever and just retire and then the end? Do you want to run a business that you can build and pass on and someone else run? Do you want to build a business to scale it, to sell it, to do something else? Like, what is the purpose of it? And, back to quote, as Simon Sinek says it, what is your why? Like, why are you doing it? What do you want from it? So that was always a big question for me. So for me, since starting the business, it's been a bit of a journey to kind of discover what that is. And in order to do that, that's a lot of self-reflection. That's a lot of personal work. Last year? So I documented a year of my startup journey, so there's an hour-long YouTube video, which is a full year, and it's like behind the scenes, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the ugly stuff, everything. And in that, I talked about I talk about I started therapy. I did therapy for no specific reason, but just to kind of help me try and figure out what it is I wanted from what I was doing. Because if you don't know where you're going, you can't ever get there. So I committed to 3 months of therapy once a week for 3 months. And oh my word, it was the hardest, most it's really tough, really, really tough. A lot of stuff came out of that I had absolutely no idea about. Like, I was like, la, 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 fine, wonderful. I'd do this for personal development. And then so my therapist described it like a sand. And then you shake the sandbox and all these little things start appearing, these little boxes, and you've got to look inside them and you've got to address them, and stuff from your childhood, stuff from your past, traumas, things that you didn't even know were traumas. Like, I learned so much about myself, who I am, why I react to certain things, why I make certain decisions. And that was a really big one for me. And I remember one week went in and I was like, I went with this kind of business question of like, do I want to do this with the business or do I want to do this? And because she knew me so well at this point, she was able to come back, literally like hold up this like metaphorical mirror and say, you do realize that what you're asking is this, and this is why you do this. And literally I just like, my brain exploded and I was like, you're right. I feel that way. That's why. And all these things were affecting my ability to make decisions, which was affecting my business. So that, for me, I wish I'd done that sooner. If I could go back and do that at like 20, and have that level of self-awareness and understanding and just being able to recognize, oh, I feel that way because of this. Therefore, that's not actually how I feel. It's just a response or whatever it is. It allows me to make better decisions. I know where I want to go and what I want to do. And that is just a really, really wonderful thing. So for me, in business, if you start a business, if you're running a business, get therapy, do it. It's the best thing you'll ever do. It's hard work, but you'll be thankful for it, I promise.
I love it because your eyes really lit up when you started recounting that story. So I don't want to pry, but is there a particular example you can give us that as to how that opened your eyes?
That particular moment that I was referring to, I'd gone in and I was talking about this kind of issue about, do I want to build a business to like keep it and have that security and think, or do I want to build it and sell it and go on off and travel? And that's my personal like paradox, I guess. Mm-hmm. As a person, I crave roots and like being grounded and secure, but at the same time, I want to run, I want to travel, I want to go, and I coexist and I have desires, and I'm always pulled between these two. And that's why I struggle so much with deciding on what kind of business I want to build and grow. And it's for that reason. And because she knew that I had those both desires and both, because again of childhood and just historical life experiences. I just, that's who I am. But I didn't know that before. But then as soon as she was able to kind of reflect that back to me, I was like, oh, it just absolutely, like, it just opens your eyes to it and go, oh yeah, that's why I do that. That's why I feel that way. So that was a real journey / eye-opening experience, which again has allowed me to now come to the conclusion that I do want both, and that's okay. And now I'm building a business that allows me to have both. It allows me to have the security and the roots that come with me as a speaker, as a trainer, delivering talks, hopefully, but also building a business, and the SaaS platform element has the potential to grow and sell, so that I've got the ability to travel and do both. There's no reason why you can't do both. But I don't think I would have reached, I know I wouldn't have reached that level of understanding if I hadn't had that professional, because I'm big on personal development and stuff. And I got as far as I could on my own. That was why I made the decision to do that. So yeah, really interesting.
Good. So what is it you love most about what you do? You're clearly very passionate about it. So what is it that you love most?
I love seeing the change in people. When I'm delivering training sessions, I always bless them, that people come in and you can tell the boss has told them to be there. They hate networking. They're terrified. They think that I'm going to force them to act out a networking event, role play something or whatever. And then hopefully the idea is that during the training session, we go through this journey together, and then bit by bit, we build up this confidence and make it fun. And again, changing that mindset for people to make it less scary. It's not, you don't have to go and sell yourself and be someone that you're not. You just go and ask questions and learn from them and tap into all their knowledge and stuff, and giving them the tools and confidence to do that. I absolutely love. I also just generally get a lot of fulfillment through running my own business. I love running my own business. I love having that autonomy of my time. It's enabling me to do my PhD. I've got a little girl, it allows me to balance everything. And I get really excited about being able to make decisions and implement them and be like, right, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's do this today. And being able to do that, I really love. So I love the networking. I love being able to help people, but I also just in general love running a business.
Great. And what frustrates you about running a business then?
Oh, do you know what? I think the measures that society puts on success frustrates me. Okay. I think there's a lot of we glorify getting investment, which is taking on debt. Let's be honest, that's what it is. And yes, people have deemed you worthy of that debt, but still it's debt and it's pressure. But there's also, unless you have X amount of staff and X amount of, if you've had, so many seed funds or whatever rounds that you've done, they're the measures of success that we use. And whether that's in business awards, it's in the press, whatever it is, then we're not deemed successful. And that frustrates me, because there's a lot of very successful people not doing those things or ticking those particular boxes that don't necessarily get the credit they deserve. Right. And I see those people, and they're having impact in society. They're having impact in their communities. They're potentially, a lot of them making a lot of money, doing amazing, but they don't have those certain little areas that they tick the boxes in, and that frustrates me quite a bit.
Okay, brilliant. And what's the legacy that you want to leave?
The reason of doing the PhD and the research, but also then passing that knowledge on and doing the training. I've always been someone I really want to contribute. I want to feel like I've contributed to the world, and it sounds really weird. As a woman, my biggest fear was that my only contribution would be to reproduce, which is strange. But I always felt like that was kind of what was expected what is expected sometimes, and that scared me, because as much as I like wanted to be a parent and like, you know, and love being a mum, I didn't want it to define my entire existence on the earth. I wanted to contribute in other ways. So doing a PhD and hopefully finding some new knowledge I can then contribute to future, you know, academics, and then applying that into the world and to help people, to really help them connect with each other in a world where we're becoming more and more disconnected, social isolation, you know. Social media and the internet, it's supposed to bring us together, but actually it pushes people apart. And, you know, there's a lot of mental and emotional health issues around that. So I think if I can help people to connect, yes, for their businesses, yes, for their research, for accessing knowledge, but also just as people, then that's amazing. It's the legacy I want to have.
Right, fantastic. And you've already hinted at this, you know, when you come to the end of your PhD, but, you know, if I was to ask you in 5 years' time where you want to be, what would that look like?
Well, hopefully past that Viva, handed in that thesis, booked to Jeni Smith. The SaaS platform, I would love to have built and sold that in 5 years. I think that would be amazing. A wonderful experience. And I think having that being ran by someone who can take it to that next level would be amazing. And then think, probably traveling and working. So working more, you know, hopefully pay off the mortgage and be able to take the family and travel the world and do more either academic research and or, you know, training and work all over the world, And then I get that fulfillment.
That
I'm looking for, I will hopefully,
Brilliant. Very good. All right. No, it's been, been fascinating talking with you. Are you up for a quick fire round, a couple of quick fire questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Great. So if you could go back to your younger self, I think you've already said this, but what advice would you give your younger self?
I'd tell her to stop drinking. I stopped drinking 5 years ago. I've been sober for 5 years now, and it's the best thing I ever did. And, you know, I had a great time, don't get me wrong, I had a lovely time, but I would have done it sooner. I'd tell her, stop smoking and drinking now, lass. You'll save a fortune.
Brilliant. And you mentioned having that therapy earlier as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I do that. Yeah,
good. Okay. So you're obviously big on self-development, as you've said. So what books or podcasts or other resources would you highlight for others that you found useful?
I really like John Peterson. I think he's fab. His 12 Rules for a Chaos-Free Life is brilliant. I'm a big fan of that. That was one of his originals, actually. It's quite an old one. Other things, you know, there's a lot of content to consume, which I think is wonderful. There's a lot to take in. I think taking the time to write your own as well, and even if it's just for you, it doesn't have to be for anyone else. You don't have to create a blog or anything like that. But taking some time just to, like, I'm not a journaler, but I get the concept of it. But just writing things down allows you to get them out of your head, which can allow you to, like, problem solve. It can allow you to see things differently. So I would absolutely encourage people to create their own content as well, even if it's just for themselves.
Yeah, great, very good. And what sort of bits of technology or apps or things like that do you find useful?
I use for business. I use QuickBooks, but I also use Pipedrive. Big fan of Pipedrive. I like that. Yep. It's very visual content and project management tool. Yep. So I love that. And then the regulars, obviously, for me, like LinkedIn's my playground. I love LinkedIn. It's my favorite social platform. So I use that regularly. Just use the notes section. I'm a note taker. I like a to-do list. I like breaking things down, ticking them off the list. So I live in my notes. I've got notes for everything and to-do lists for everything. So yeah, absolutely my jam.
Very good. And who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
Well, one, I like the sound of business leader. I don't think that one particularly. That's nice. I just know, I think I've had the pleasure of, like, being employed and self-employed multiple times over the years. And I think every time I've been employed, I've taken something from the boss, from the manager, from the colleagues. And I love that about being employed. I think that's really helped me be a better business leader, because you look at things and you're like, oh, I would do that different. Oh, I love that how they've done that. Or, so I think there's lots of little bits of different experiences. But again, this is where this diverse experience comes in. I think the more you can do and try, the better.
Great, good. And bit tongue in cheek, but I ask it to everybody, but what's your most successful marketing or lead generation tactic?
Ooh, give it away. Give it away. I give away, all my knowledge, like infamy, give away, just tell people. For me, a lot of people, especially in the industry where it's their knowledge that they're selling essentially, they're like to gatekeep it quite a lot. But really, to build trust and to build credibility in the eyes of people, you need to showcase your knowledge. So yeah, give it away in whatever form you enjoy, whether it's I've tried to do everything for everyone. So there's the white paper that you can download. There's videos. There's the new podcast that I'm starting to do, which is just 10 minutes of me talking about a different subject. There's blogs. So there's written. There's all kinds. So yeah, give away that knowledge, and then people will pay for it. Right? Weirdly, yeah, which feels a bit bizarre, but it does. It works. I promise.
Great, excellent. So if people would like to find some of your knowledge, where's the best place for them to do that?
Over at the website, there's loads of free stuff. So it's just NetKno, NETKNO.co.uk. There's loads of stuff on there. You can download, you can watch, you can read, whatever your preference.
Brilliant. And are you open to people contacting you on LinkedIn as well, something like that?
Yeah. Come and say hello. Any questions, anything I can help with, just give me a shout. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Jeni, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.